This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Lenore Moudou in for Esther Gitui-Weward, who is off today. It's Tuesday, July 23rd. This is Africa 54. Botswana's conservative and religious communities are welcoming the possible repeal of colonial-era laws against gay sex passed in June. But the gay community and rights groups are against the action. Rising sea levels present major challenges for fishermen in Senegal. And researchers in Brazil join the war on mosquitoes and the diseases they carry. We'll have those stories in a moment, but first, we begin in South Africa, where the high levels of gang violence and crime in Cape Town's townships is increasingly troubling. To protect their children, community members have created a walking bus initiative in which adults lead students safely to school through dangerous neighborhoods. We get more in this report from Reuters.
They are protecting our kids from elements like gangsters and robberies, and it's clamped down on a lot of crime in our area.
And children say it's made their walk to and from school more enjoyable.
In the previous school I went to, there was no walking bus people, but this time my father sent me to this school. Now I feel much safer because there's walking bus people.
More than 2,000 people have been violently killed this year alone in Cape Town's mainly poor black and mixed race areas. Almost half the deaths have been gang-related. So bad that last week the army was brought in to help keep the peace. Walking Bus says its volunteers are thoroughly vetted before they can take part. Many are also members of the local neighborhood watch. Despite the lack of financial resources, the project spread across 95 areas around the Cape Flats.
That was a report from Reuters. Botswana's government is set to appeal a High Court judgment issued in June, which overturned colonial-era laws against gay sex, the first decriminalization of homosexual relations through the courts in Africa. Botswana's conservative and religious communities are welcoming the possible repeal of the ruling, while the gay community and rights groups are criticizing the step backwards in gay rights. Kodisi Dube reports from Gaborone.
Botswana's gay community and rights activists celebrated June 11 when the High Court became the first in Africa to overturn colonial-era laws against gay sex. But the victory could be short-lived as Botswana's Attorney General is to appeal the ruling, stifling hopes for equal rights in the gay community. Botswana musician Mutswa Ferre is one of the country's few openly gay public figures.
My heart was saddened by that. I felt mortified by it because we were moving forward, we were making progress, and now we're 2 steps back.
Botswana's conservative and religious communities, however, have welcomed the government's move against legalizing gay sex, which they deem immoral.
This is a challenge. It's not normal, and that is not how God wanted or intended human beings to be like. And therefore, now I'm very happy that the state has actually risen up to say, no, this has been an error.
The appeal will look at upholding Botswana's penal code sections 1-4 and 5, anti-gay laws and other former British colonies, and jails those found guilty for up to 7 years. By and for rights groups say the law promotes shaming and discriminating against gay people. The Botswana on ethics law and HIV/AIDS says it will be brought to gay rights if the High Court overturning the laws is repealed.
We are really disappointed on hearing the news that government is appealing the June 11 case on criminalization. The reason being that somewhat offense that far as protecting policies and laws that discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation.
Meanwhile, for gay communities in Botswana and across Africa, the High Court's decision remains a beacon of hope for gay rights.
It means so much for the LGBTQ community because we can be free to love who we love, we can be free to express ourselves, we can be free in the workplace, we can be free as human beings.
International attention upon Botswana's Court of Appeal as it reviews the Denmark judgment. For VOA News, Haboroni.
Kenyan Finance Minister Henry Rotich is free from custody after posting cash out Tuesday afternoon. He was arrested Monday on suspicion of financial misconduct related to the construction of two dams. The corruption charges stem from a police investigation into the misuse of funds in connection with the dam project overseen by an Italian construction company. Rotich is denying the charges. His second in command at the ministry, Principal Secretary Kamal Thoge, was also released on bail. Both men have been charged with corruption offenses. Judge Douglas Ogoti ordered both men to stay away from their offices for the remainder of the trial. Nigerian troops and police clashed Tuesday with Shiite Muslim marchers in the capital, Abuja. The Shiite group marched in protest against the continued detention of its leader, Ibrahim Zaatari, despite a court ruling that he be released. The violence comes just one day after at least 3 people were killed in a similar confrontation in the administrative heart of Abuja. Members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria regularly take to the streets of Abuja to call for the release of Zakzaki, who has been in custody since 2015. A major change is coming to British politics. The nation's Conservative Party announced Tuesday that Boris Johnson has won the election to be its new leader and become the country's next prime minister. Johnson easily defeated British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt in the voting that ended Monday night by a margin of 66% to 34%. In his victory speech, Johnson pledged to deliver Britain's exit from the European Union on October 31st and to unite and energize the country with efforts to improve education, infrastructure, and police.
It was therefore an act of state piracy.
And today, at this pivotal moment in our history, we again have to reconcile two sets of instincts, two noble sets of instincts, between the deep desire for friendship and free trade and mutual support in security and defence between Britain and our European partners, and the simultaneous desire, equally deep and heartfelt, for democratic self-government in this country.
The populist former mayor of London and a former foreign secretary under Prime Minister Theresa May will officially replace May on Wednesday as she steps down following repeated failures to deliver Britain's exit from the European Union. The Brexit process was meant to be concluded in late March, but EU officials agreed to push the deadline to October 31st. Johnson has expressed a willingness to withdraw Britain from the EU at that time, with or without an agreement in place. Many members of parliament oppose a no-deal Brexit, saying such a move would be economically chaotic. The city of Saint Louis in Senegal is home to generations of fishermen who say they know no other life or way to make a living. But rising sea levels and new international regulations are forcing them to change how they work. VOA's Isha Sarai has our report.
Fishermen in Saint Louis, Senegal come from generations of ancestors who also fished these waters. But many say it's not the same livelihood as it was for their fathers and grandfathers.
Our parents were lucky. Traditional rules in the fishing community were well established and respected. But things have changed now. Families are expanding and using new materials.
The market has become saturated, not just by families who say they are having more children to help fish, but also by those who once fished in neighboring Mauritania. Increased security in Mauritanian waters means fishermen who go there risk being fined, detained, or even shot at.
If you pay them, they'll give you back your equipment and your catch. But if you can't pay, they'll confiscate everything.
Despite his difficulties with coast guards in Mauritania, Fall, along with many other fishermen, says the biggest challenge they face is rising sea levels.
The rising sea levels are changing the work. This is why we can no longer anchor our boats on the beach. We have to come around into the city and leave them along the river.
Higher sea levels have taken out a number of buildings along the coast. Tents under which women used to dry and cure fish on the beach have moved to cramped spaces further inland.
We have suffered huge losses. The main challenge we face here is how tight our space is. The space is too small. Between the smell of fish and the heat, we suffocate here. When we were on the beach, at least we had some fresh air.
But the fishermen and their families say they have no choice but to adjust to the new conditions.
We as fishermen, we just have this one activity. From the time of our grandparents to current times, from father to son, we are fishermen. We just have this one job. When it goes well, it goes well. When there are challenges, we suffer.
Fishing is all we have. We rely on this work to lead a decent life.
While overcoming more difficulties in the field than their parents did, the fishermen worry about the future of their trade and the challenges their children will face. Isha Sarai, VOA News, Saint Louis.
Going to a museum, zoo, or aquarium is no longer just a passive event where guests look at an exhibit or animals. Emerging technology is allowing visitors an interactive experience that stimulates the senses. An aquarium in Southern California recently finished construction on a new wing packed with technology. VOA's Elizabeth Lee has the details.
From this wall of virtual bubbles that visitors can pop, revealing information about the ocean, to a multi-sensory theater experience, all the displays in the new Pacific Visions wing of the Aquarium of the Pacific in California aim to immerse visitors in stories about the ocean and the globe.
And we want also, using technology, to make the wonder, the majesty, the beauty of the world ocean and the importance of this story accessible to all people.
A rich diversity of life, including making a film accessible to the deaf or blind with this device, which allows a person to virtually feel what's on the big screen.
You literally put out your hand in free space like this, and we project sensations onto your hand using ultrasound. So these are sound waves that you can't hear.
Ultrahaptics, the company that provides this technology, is making the virtual touch experience in entertainment available to a broader audience over the next year and in consumer devices over the next couple of years. How does it work?
There's an array of ultrasonic speakers in the device, and these are emitting ultrasound waves at slightly different times, each of them, and they're calculated to arrive at your hand at a focal point, at a single point that we can then scan across your hand, create different shapes on your hand.
A computer that runs this device is connected wirelessly to a show management computer system. The ultrasound waves creating virtual touch are synchronized with the other effects of the film that everyone experiences, such as wind and even vibrating seats. The goal of all these technologies is to have all visitors connect with the challenges and beauty of the ocean in a deeper way. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Long Beach, California.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, Brazilian researchers modernize mosquito traps.
am Sheikh Asali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has rehabilitated a football field on the outskirts of Juba, with an aim to improve facilities for the youth and enable them to promote peace through football. Local teams played against each other last week as part of events that launched the grounds, after peacekeepers from Thailand and Nepal leveled the pitch. The footballers received various sports gear and equipment donated by the troops. A volleyball area has also been set up by the peacekeepers to promote the sport in the community. Next up, the streets of Casablanca are shining with colors as graffiti artists adorned the city's walls and buildings with modern paintings in celebration of Morocco's annual Sabaga Baga Festival. Driven by a passion for street art, this year's festival is the 6th since 2013. Taking on a modern twist that focuses on contemporary ideas. The festival gives artists from all over the world the opportunity to decorate Casablanca's large buildings. The festival was divided into 4 events: an art gallery, a skill exchanging workshop, a graffiti competition, and graffiti training sessions. And finally, they're not just any Olympic mascots. For the Tokyo Games, they are, of course, artificial intelligence robot mascots that have been developed by Toyota. They will welcome athletes to official venues. The company is also working on this prototype of its field support robot to be used at the Games. It can travel up to 20 kilometers per hour. Sporting 3 cameras and a sensor, it's set to be used as a high-tech way to retrieve javelins and hammers. Toyota says it's designed to reduce the amount of time needed to fetch items and cut the amount of human staff needed. And that's what's trending today.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he could win the Afghanistan war in a week, but it would mean killing 10 million people. At a joint press conference with Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan Monday, the president said Pakistan will help the United States get out of Afghanistan after 18 years of involvement. VOA's Zatika Hoke reports Khan's visit to Washington is the first meeting between U.S. and Pakistani leaders since Trump took office.
Pakistan's Prime Minister is seeking to restore U.S. aid to his country, which Trump ended last year, saying that Islamabad was not doing enough to fight extremism.
The problem was Pakistan, this is before you, Pakistan was not doing anything for us. They were really, I think, subversive. They were going against us. I'll tell you what, to be honest, I think we have a better relationship with Pakistan right now than we did when we were paying that money.
Trump blamed the previous U.S. administration for a lack of Pakistan's cooperation.
I think Pakistan can do a tremendous amount with respect to Afghanistan. They didn't do it, and I don't blame them because they were dealing with the wrong president. Who knows? But I think Pakistan could have done. They're helping us a lot now. I think they could have helped us a lot in the past.
Trump said the U.S. aid, amounting to about $1.3 billion, could be restored to Pakistan, depending on what's worked out. He wants Pakistan's cooperation on reaching a deal with the Taliban to end the war in Afghanistan and withdraw U.S. troops from there after close to 19 years.
I think Pakistan's going to help us out to extricate ourselves. We're like policemen. We're not fighting a war. If we wanted to fight a war in Afghanistan and win it, I could win that war in a week. I just don't want to kill 10 million people.
Khan said there is no military solution in Afghanistan.
I feel, and I think we will discuss this, it's the closest we have been to a peace deal. And we hope that in the coming days, we will be able to urge the Taliban to speak to the Afghan government and come to a settlement, a political solution.
So far, Taliban leaders have refused to negotiate directly with the government in Kabul, calling it illegitimate and a puppet of the United States. The group has met with U.S. representatives for 7 rounds of peace talks. Negotiators have claimed progress in the latest round of talks that began June 29th in Doha, Qatar. But at the same time, a Taliban attack in Afghanistan killed 25 people. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's health minister stepped down on Monday, citing his removal as the head of the country's Ebola response and concerns over a proposed experiment with a new and licensed vaccine. In a statement written to President Felix Tshisekedi, Dr. Oli Ilunga Kalenga wrote, quote, "As a result of your decision to place the response to the Ebola outbreak under your direct supervision, I hereby submit my resignation as health minister," end of quote. Dr. Kalenga also objected to suggestion that he introduce a second vaccine to the country's fight against the highly infectious hemorrhagic virus. Tshisekedi replaced Dr. Kalenga Saturday as chief of the country's Ebola response team. This latest Ebola epidemic has killed more than 1,700 people. Ibrahima Sosé Fall, the Deputy Director General of the World Health Organization, says the Ebola response team has enjoyed working with DRC Health Minister.
We have enjoyed our collaboration with the minister, who has been on all fronts since the beginning of the epidemic, and we're working on an extremely complex context. We have seen security problems, we have seen the weakness of the health system in the area, the needs of the communities. So it's not really about who's doing it, it's about a system challenge. WHO is aware of all the steps in the research on immunization. It is for this reason that the vaccine Merck, which is currently used, is a candidate vaccine to be recommended by a SAGE community for the other vaccines, whether it is Johnson & Johnson vaccine or other vaccine candidate. WHO strongly recommends clinical trials. We should move forward to make it more efficient and safe.
Reporting to Tshisekedi will be Jean-Jacques Muyambe Tamfum, director of the National Institute for Biomedical Research in Kinshasa. He was a member of the team that investigated the first known Ebola outbreak in then Zaire in 1976. Since August of 2018, Ebola has infected more than 2,500 people in the DRC. Now, antibiotic-resistant bacteria pose one of the biggest threats to global health, according to the World Health Organization. Some researchers say they may have discovered a way to fight this type of bacteria without the microorganisms ever becoming resistant to treatment. Here again is VOA's Elizabeth Lee.
A team of researchers across 3 universities is working on a cell-killing machine invisible to the naked eye.
We want to be bacteria's worst nightmare.
They're experimenting with tiny man-made nanomachines that can drill into a cell, killing it. The machines are single-molecule motors that can spin at about 3 million rotations a second when a blue light shines on them. As they spin, they drill into the cell. Harmful bacteria cannot mutate to overcome this type of weapon, says Rice University chemist James Tour.
So we may have found something that the cell could never build a resistance to.
The nanomachines are so small that about 50,000 of them can fit across the diameter of a human hair, says Tour. In comparison, only about 50 cells can take up that amount of space. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria are not the only enemies this weapon can fight. The nanomachines can drill into cancer cells. This shows the cell nucleus disintegrating into fragments.
Well, we've tried 4 different types, and every cancer cell that it touches is toast.
They do this by adding a peptide, also a molecule that consists of amino acids, to the nanomachine. That peptide recognizes specific cells and binds the nanomachine to that cell, so that only cancer cells, not healthy cells, are targeted. A blue light activates the machine.
But generally, it's not just one nanomachine. It's 50, and each cell is going to get 50 holes drilled in it, generally.
Tor says it would only take a few minutes to kill cancerous cells, in contrast to days or longer using radiation or chemotherapy. In another application, nanomachines could be used to sculpt away fat cells when applied onto the skin through a gel.
You just take a bright light and just pass it over, and these start attacking the adipocytes, which are the fat cells, and blow those open.
This year, researchers will start testing nanomachines on Staphylococcus bacteria skin infections on live rodents. As the scientists do their work, they say one goal is to find a way to get the blue light deep into the body if they are to fight bacteria or tumor cells that are well below the skin's surface. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Houston.
Public health clinics in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro are reporting spikes in mosquito-borne viruses. VOA's Arash Arabadasi has the details.
The Aedes aegypti, or yellow fever mosquito, is more than just a nuisance. It may carry life-threatening diseases like dengue, Zika, or chikungunya.
The mosquito has many ways to hide and to reproduce. As long as the mosquito focal points are not neutralized within the ecosystem, it will continue to exist.
Health clinicians in Rio de Janeiro say they suspect more than 1 million cases of dengue, with nearly 400 fatalities in just the first half of 2019. That is an increase of 163% from last year. Ivo Carlos Correa is a professor of dentistry at the University of Brazil. He began looking for ways to keep the Aedes mosquito from reaching his then young child.
This graph shows the light sensitivity of the female of the species, transmitter of the arbovirus diseases.
Correa found a study in a medical journal about the mosquito's sensitivity to light. He set out to build a trap, but he needed help and a steady supply of victims. So he turned to the university's chemistry department. There he found Professor Monica Ferreira Morea, a breeder of mosquitoes. She studied the effects of different substances on their biology and bred mosquitoes for tests with Correa's lights.
We ran 3 experiments with varying intensities and colors of light. The results were distinct. The traps with green light caught the most mosquitoes, 19 out of 20.
Arboviruses can result in headaches, muscle pain, joint swelling, and rash. They become high risk in newborns and older adults.
I didn't get chikungunya. My father didn't either, but my mother, my daughter, and many of our neighbors had it. I didn't get it, and I think the mosquito trap is effective.
Thanks for joining us. Good night.